Hello and welcome to this edition of Your Health, Your Wealth. I'm your host, Dr. Eddie Patton. And, we've got another exciting episode here today. I'm blessed through my network to interact with some real healthcare innovators. And today we have one of those innovators with us today, a real pioneer in healthcare, particularly in cardiology. And as we gear up for football season, I know that kids are out getting their physicals and doing different things. So I wanted to touch on a subject that, particularly with some recent things that have happened in the NFL, a lot of people know about, but they really don't know about. And that is sudden cardiac arrest in athletes. So I have just the expert here with me today, a former colleague that works with me with the Harris County Medical Society. Dr. Asif Ali is here today. A little bit of background about Asif. He's a clinical associate professor of cardiovascular medicine at the University of Texas Medical School and the University of Houston Medical School. We were just sitting here talking that, this guy is a med tech innovator, a leader in healthcare, pioneer in cardiology, and also an advisor to the American Heart Association. So just the right expert to come today to talk about this subject. Thank you so much, Os, for taking time out and coming and join us here.
Yeah, I really appreciate you having me out today. It's an important topic, and it's close to heart.
Absolutely. So I want to start off by talking about this recent episode in the NFL in 2023. There's a Bills player, Hamlin. He was tackling a Bengals wide receiver and had a cardiac arrest right there on the field. They were working on it for like 10 minutes, doing chest compression, CPR, defibrillator. What exactly happened to him? And was this just a freak accident?
Because I do a lot of research, a lot of studies in the field of sudden cardiac death in athletes. Mm-hmm. Believe it or not, when this happened, this episode happened live on TV, my phone was blowing up.
Bet it was.
People were texting me, asking me what happened. And I'm telling you from the get-go, I said, this is a sudden cardiac arrest. Do you remember they thought it was a concussion?
Yeah.
So what I said is, if you saw the replay, he went down, and then he stands up, and then he goes down again.
Absolutely.
So Jim Ellis, who I was with in Florida for the Jacksonville Jaguars after this event, talking about this, actually I lecture on this exact incident. Jim Ellis said, when you see someone down, think of sudden cardiac arrest before even a concussion. Wow. Because a concussion you can come back from, but a sudden cardiac arrest can then lead to sudden cardiac death. Mm-hmm. So when my phone was blowing up, I was texting back and I said, they need to feel for a pulse. Yeah. This is not a concussion. Because a concussion, he would have got hit and he would have stayed down.
Absolutely.
He was in a arrhythmia when he stood up that was just giving enough blood to his brain, and that arrhythmia went into a worse arrhythmia, probably VTAC or VFib, and then he went down.
Wow.
And so now I've had many lectures around this, that as soon as someone is down, you need to do the ABCs. You need to check for an airway, you need to check for breathing, you need to check for circulation, which is, as you know, a pulse, and then go get the defibrillator if they're down. So there's some, I think, because of that case, and thank God, right, that he survived. Like let's just
back playing and everything,
but he had the who's who there on the sidelines to rapidly detect this, and he was fortunate because majority of cases are not as fortunate.
Yeah.
As you know, for every 1 minute that someone is down in a sudden cardiac arrest, their death rate goes up by 10% per minute. And do you know what the average time for EMS to get to you if you had that incident happen to you in Houston? It's about 7 minutes. Wow. So just think about it. That's a 70% likelihood you're not going to be able to get up.
Absolutely.
And actually, it's even worse than that. It's the percentages are less than 5%. In most scenarios, if you have a sudden cardiac arrest without getting the circulation and the defibrillation. He was fortunate, and let's just be thankful and grateful that he was one of the survivors.
Yeah.
But for every one survivor, there are many that aren't. And, I talked about this in the state government, and it's fortunate that he was, though.
And I think as a neurologist, I automatically home in on concussions. And, of course, with the NFL, they had, so much emphasis has gone in concussions, what was going on with Tua and everything else. But we forget about these other instances, and like sudden cardiac death in athletes. And we'll talk about even younger men of age, but you're right, being in the right place at the right time. So at my church, I'm head of the health ministry. I had them bring in 2 defibrillators. I think it's important at schools, all these public places, that we have defibrillators and that people get at least some basic training on CPR.
No, 100%. And look, I think this is a great podcast because you have a neurologist and a cardiologist. Like we're the two people. If you want to talk about this subject, these are the subject matter experts that need to talk about it, because those are the 2 things that we really need to think about in student athletes. It's concussions, which is the brain.
Yep.
And sudden cardiac arrest, which is the heart. And
that's right.
That's a heart-brain connection right there. So
absolutely.
Yeah. So I appreciate the podcast because I think part of this is education and awareness. We're not trying to scare. This is not about scaring people. This is about education.
Yeah.
And education actually reduces that anxiety, but you just need to know that this exists and you need to know what you should be doing about it. So just having a plan of action.
Absolutely. And when we think about this, and I mean, you see cases of these huge 6'4" healthy guys that can normally run, a mile flat and fast times on the 400 and all that, all of a sudden like that, dropping from a cardiac arrest. Right. Is this the same heart attack that you see in like middle-aged men, or is it something different?
Yeah, so this is very different. So when people think of sudden cardiac death, they think of a heart attack, which is your arteries of your heart that get shut down and don't supply blood to your heart. So this is a little bit different. This is very different, actually. So the number one killer in student athletes is called HOCM, which stands for hypertrophic cardiomyopathy or obstructive cardiomyopathy. So what that means is the heart is not able to pump the blood to the rest of the body, and that it can be fatal. So that is a structural problem of the heart. Usually you're born with it.
Yeah.
And when you play sports, and really this is kind of part of that education awareness, if you have an athlete that passes out after playing in an intense sport, say like right after they ran that 400 dash and they passed out, you really need to think about HOCM first. Wow. But there's other causes. So that's a structural problem. You can also have electrical problems. And there's a whole myriad, right ventricular outflow tract obstruction, Brugada. There's so many other electrical problems. Wolff-Parkinson-White would be another common one. I just saw a patient at U of H who had that, and luckily we were able to catch that. So those are electrical problems. You can have other things like infiltrative problems. So we just got through COVID, right? And still people are having COVID infection. So even an infection can cause some issues on your heart where you may have an arrhythmia. Yeah. And then lastly, I mean, there are problems that could be in the heart arteries, but those would be more congenital. Yeah. Like if there's a artery that's coming off the wrong coronary artery, or if you have a myocardial bridge, there's some areas where you could have some other issues. And those are more what we would be called congenital rather than an acquired problem. And then lastly, I do want to point out one thing that's very important in this conversation. I'm seeing more kids drink energy drinks, and I will tell you that Dr. Higgins, one of my colleagues, and we were just at the Heart Ball together on stage actually for our work on sudden cardiac death in athletes in the state of Texas, because we'll talk about it later about the bill that we got passed in the state of Texas on this very topic of sudden cardiac death and awareness. But we found that by drinking, especially caffeine, before you play sports, you've heard of pre-sport workout drinks.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, I would just tell whoever's listening in, read about the papers we've published on sports drinks and energy drinks and taurine and other things that might be in it. Not a good idea, especially for pre-sport. And then also knowing how much caffeine you're putting in.
You know, I'm seeing more and more, even from a neurological standpoint, from things like seizures, because, I mean, these kids are trying to keep up, and they're doing all type of things, not only energy drinks, but also, you know, this tobacco practice, Zen, this things that they're placing is become a real issue, but opportunity to really talk to kids about, you know, doing that.
So it's become very, I think, multifactorial. It's not just one thing that may cause, you know, a sudden cardiac arrest, but I think that's, you know, understanding what all the different chemicals we're putting in ourselves.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So one thing I did want to make sure that we point out on this topic of sudden cardiac arrest in athletes, have you seen just an increase in number? Have you seen more kids in the news having arrests? Like
actually, you mentioned COVID earlier, because I think it was in January there was a New England Journal of Medicine about COVID and the increase in sudden cardiac arrest in athletes. So yeah, right. What's going on with that?
Yeah, what's going on? So you know, one, I think that people are becoming more aware that this is a issue. Okay. By the way, it is the number one cause of death in student athletes: sudden cardiac arrest.
I didn't know that.
And I don't think there is a place or a school that isn't at least aware that sudden cardiac arrest is a thing. I think the problem is how do you diagnose?
Yes.
And how do you treat? Mm-hmm. And I think also just having some education and awareness. So I really appreciate this podcast, because what I found is it's just statistics. Mm-hmm. It can happen to anyone. It is the number one cause of death outside of a student athlete driving. That would be, you know, that would surpass it. But I'm saying from a natural physiological state, that is the number one cause. So, yeah, so when you look at infections, they can cause some issues on your heart. So generally, if you have the flu, I don't think you should be doing 2-a-days. And by the way, look at what we're doing in sports now. Now to get to everything has become very competitive.
Yes.
So it's no longer seasonal. It's all year round. It's 2-a-days. It is hot in Houston. We're here in Houston.
We are here
it gets
in
a little bit muggy and it gets a little hot.
Yeah.
But it's not like when maybe you and I were working out, it was, you know, you had your time, you worked out. Now it's like before school, after school, weekends, there are club sports, you're flying around. It's no longer become a, you know, just a recreational thing. It's almost like a job. I mean, to just get into college, you have to have like a media team to film you and watch you. So I'm just saying that pressure, that stress, the 2-a-days, the electrolytes, the consumption of all of these chemicals, it's becoming a perfect storm. Add COVID to it or an infection, and you know you're brewing for disaster. So I think it's a culmination, including having some already genetic issues, some congenital issues that get top that off.
And you speaking to the choir, I mean, right now. So my son finished school last week, going into high school, and he's already started 2-a-days preparing for basketball and baseball, spring and winter sports
all together.
But they've already, you know, I mean, and it is like you mentioned. I mean, it's a lot of pressure, and we underestimate the fact that these kids are healthy, and we do have to monitor what they put into their body, but we have to watch for things like this and be cognizant of that. And so one of the things you mentioned was earlier you talked about someone who like passes out, and you know we've all seen when you start doing 2 days and all of a sudden you have to stop and throw up and those kind of things. But you know, are there any signs that coaches, parents, teachers can look for that can help them to know that hey, we may need to get this kid a little more worked up, or get his car worked up a little bit?
Yeah, so it's such a fine line, right? Because you come off of postseason, you haven't worked out for the whole summer, and the coaches, when you start, they don't factor that in. It's like, guys are running lines, you go, right? And so it's difficult because, you know, if you're deconditioned, you're going to be a little short of breath. You may get a little bit of discomfort in the chest. And the no-brainer one, obviously, is if you pass out. I think any coach will be like, hey, you're on the sideline till you get cleared. Passing out is never a good sign. Neurologically or cardiac, you need to get checked out. But yeah, chest pain, shortness of breath, feeling really dizzy. These can be very subjective. That's the problem. But those need to be addressed and taken seriously and be looked at. And there are screenings. So we actually did a study in middle school. By the way, we screen kids from 12 to 18.
Okay.
And so our study was called HEARTS, Houston Early Age Risk Testing Screening Study.
All right. I love it. HEARTS.
So it was a 4-point feasibility study, which means that we looked at 4 things: a history, a physical exam, an EKG, and an echocardiogram. We had 150 students that we looked at. I believe there was 23% were from Hispanic origin, and the rest were African American. It was a middle school of Houston, a public school. 94 participants decided they would partake in this 4-point study. And believe it or not, we found 7 out of 94 that had a cardiac issue. Some were minor, 5 were minor, but 2 were major. In fact, in those patients, we actually found 3 of them that had severe high blood pressure, and many of those students were overweight or even obese, which is another factor.
Absolutely.
But can you imagine, just in 94 kids, so let's say 100 kids, 7% ended up having something. So those were like a hole in the heart, an ASD, PFO, coarctation of the aorta, left ventricular hypertrophy, thick heart. I mean, I think you would want to know if you have a hole in the heart.
Absolutely.
Probably be a good idea.
Yeah.
So we, at that time, I was actually working with the Houston Rockets. I was one of the cardiologists for them. And Memorial Hermann and University of Texas funded a study for us to look at asymptomatic. These means kids did not have any symptoms.
Wow.
So you're talking about what should we look at if they have symptoms? I'm telling you, these kids didn't have symptoms, but they had cardiac issues that we needed to know about. That landed me actually on the Dr. Oz show, and then I was on Fox and Friends talking about the study. And then Scott Stevens, father of Cody Stevens, out in Crosby, Texas, his kid dies at the age of 18. Calls me up and says, would you talk about this research in the state capitol, in Congress and Senate? 2014, the bill was called House Bill 76, Go Big or Go Home. Took us 5 years till 2019. We were the first state in the union to pass a bill in the UIL as an opt-in. So if you go look at your kid's form that you have to fill out before you play sports, the bill that Dr. Higgins, I want to give him a shout out, one of my colleagues and who was a PI for the heart study, and I spoke on the bill. It took us 5 years.
5 years, wow.
Do you know how we got that bill passed?
How's that?
I'll get probably a little bit emotional on this one.
It's fun. Look.
I had 250 moms come with the picture of their dead child.
Wow.
And I told Congress at that time, we have done everything you've asked over the past 5 years. We have got the studies done. We did more studies. We recruited more students. And we're sitting here after 5 years. I have 250 moms and dads with their dead child. And the argument was that EKGs, can be false positives or false negatives. But I said these parents will take a false positive or a false negative any day of the week.
Absolutely.
To have their child screened. So I said the norm that we have today is to do nothing, to wait for an event. I told you earlier that once an event happens, you're lucky. Luck is not on your side. The statistics show that sometimes you can have 50-50 whether you have symptoms or not, by the way. So
and what environment you're in, because a lot of these inner city schools, they don't have defibrillators. They don't even have coaches or staff who are familiar with CPR. But they should. I know that, certain districts now require the type of thing. But yeah, I mean, you got to be at the right environment. Like Hamlin was at the right place.
That right, but he had that infrastructure around him, like you said. So 2019, we get the bill passed. 2024. NFL asked me to come up to Florida, to Jacksonville Jaguars. I was at their stadium. I gave a whole talk on this. In 1 year, proud of Florida, first state in the nation and opt out to screen I'm screening 300,000 kids.
Wow.
With who we play for, Evan, my buddy out in Florida. He's the one who asked me to come. I get a call from the Senate, Congress, and the governor and said 100% of us have agreed with this bill, but we're not going to do an opt-in. We're going to do an opt-out.
There we go.
And there we go. And now we're in 14 states.
Awesome.
And I have a research institute called Cena Research Institute, and we're doing this in the state of Texas. We don't want money to be the barrier.
Yeah.
We have, people to do EKGs and free EKGs, but this conversation, is just a beginning about education and awareness. This is about, talking to your school districts. I think you said it well. Just have a plan. If something happens, know, first of all, where your defibrillator is. So in general, someone goes down, it's, Annie, are you okay? Like, are they down? They're not waking up.
Yeah.
Feel for a pulse. Ask someone to call 911. Ask someone to get a defibrillator and start chest compressions.
Yeah.
Start circulating the blood. That's all you need to do till EMS gets there. If you have people who know advanced life support, great. They can do the breaths. They can do the defibrillator. But at a minimum, call 911, start chest compressions, get a defibrillator. It will save a life.
Yeah, and BLS has even changed over the years from when I was here. It was like, do breast, chest. Now, as long as you can do chest compressions, you're keeping that blood circulating.
Keep it circulating because you got a lot of oxygen in that lung, and you need to circulate it to the brain. You're the neurologist.
Absolutely.
And I'm the heart doctor. You got to push on that heart and then start singing "Staying Alive" because that's how you do it. Yeah. That's how fast you want to push. Sing that song, "Staying Alive," and keep that person alive till you get EMS there.
Earlier when we were talking about screening and those people who have signs and symptoms. First of all, in that 5 years that it took you to get that bill passed, think of how many potential lives that parents who may have lost their kids during that time. But on top of that, some people will have signs and symptoms. And I remember even in medical school, learning about the heart. We learn about the heart, even as neurologists. But with a hypertrophic condition, that flap, and you're born with it. But all it takes is for the heart to beat fast, high activity, and then it doesn't, compensate. This is sudden cardiac arrest in athletes. So a lot of times you won't have those signs and symptoms. So I want to talk about now screening. What can we do proactively to catch more of these cases before it happens?
Yeah, so it's a great question. So you said it well. It's finding a needle in a haystack. And I think part of the issue where I understand where the Texas state government was talking about, it's an economic issue. But for me, I can't put a price on an individual kid. And so screening starts with first having a plan of action. So, have a plan of action if something were to happen. Now, what you're asking is how do we prevent that from happening in the first place? And that's where checking that opt-in on the box on your UIL, on your form, you can have the state of Texas is not paying for it. Actually, we have foundations that will pay for an EKG.
Okay.
I even have an organization, we need to get an ultrasound of the heart, that we have donations around that too. It's amazing. People have really got behind this program.
Yeah.
I don't think, I've had one school district who said the parents aren't going to get behind this.
Yeah.
Everyone wants their kid to be safe. We want our kids to play sports. We think at a minimum, doing the history, physical exam, and an EKG
Okay.
would be the best feasible way
Okay.
to do this. And by the way, there are mobile units that do this here in the state of Texas. Happy if anyone reaches out to me
Absolutely.
to send them to the right places that screen. And we've been screening at schools, by the way. So we set up in the gym. We have for males and females. We have female sonographers and males to do the males for the EKGs. And we actually, our study was within less than 20 minutes, we can screen with an ultrasound, an EKG, and do the history and physical exam.
Less than 20 minutes.
And less than 20. And we've saved lives. Not one
I
life,
believe it.
lives. It's statistics.
Yeah.
You know, it is what it is. But the good news is we can at least have a plan of action to screen and a plan of action to treat in case something happens. And we need both of them. We need the screening,
Yeah.
the diagnosis, and the treatment.
And this is a little side note, but I just thought about this as you were talking because I mentioned earlier that you are heavy in the innovation. As we see these new, iPhone EKGs, I do my EKG with my iWatch just to see how my heart rhythm. I don't know how good it is or accurate, but do you think innovation will help us out by, where we don't need all the leads and the traditional EKGs that we've seen in the past?
Yeah, so I'm actually in that world of innovation now. So there is a group from, I think, England. It's called Lighthearted AI, and they actually have a laser in 10 seconds can hit your artery in your neck called your carotid and actually listen for that murmur in your heart at your neck in 10 seconds.
Oh, wow.
So we're going to get that ultrasound down to a 10-second laser, and that's already they're doing that over in England.
Okay.
A second company here in Houston, Rick Jones from Cardio, has a 4-digital stethoscope. It's a program with the ION and Rice University.
Yeah.
That's a 4-digital stethoscope that they're training artificial intelligence to listen in to your heart. And then another company that's a public traded company in Australia called EchoIQ. They've already have an FDA approved for aortic stenosis, which is in the same area as HOCM. And I'm trying to convince them to listen in for this hypertrophic obstructive cardiomyopathy. And I think they're tackling heart failure next.
Yeah.
But hopefully soon in this condition called HOCM. So a lot of innovation. I'm working with the American Heart Association as well, and happy for anyone to work with us around this and creating better solutions that are quick and easy and informative. Because education awareness is how we solve this.
Absolutely.
And we do the screening and we make sure those defibrillators, you did a great job at your church. Because getting that defibrillator on and calling 911 as soon as you can so the professionals can come in is the way we're going to, save the lives. But I hope we can catch them before that happens. And I think that's where artificial intelligence also plays a role in.
Absolutely.
In all of this. Yeah.
Absolutely. And just kind of as we wrap things up, I'm excited about working with you. I know we've been on a couple of meetings with some different things. So, tell us a little bit more about some of the innovative things you're doing specifically around screening and finding more of these cases specifically before they happen.
No, so absolutely. And, we both share on the Harris County Medical Society, the artificial intelligence program. And I think leveraging some artificial intelligence in all of this screening will help give us prediction way before it happens. And I think that's where the innovation. So I believe Lighthearted AI, Cardio from Houston, EchoIQ, or some of the few companies. I would also say Higgy. They're a group up in Chicago that are doing mass scale. I think all of these companies are working towards detection way early and even predicting even before we even hear it.
Wow.
Yeah. So really exciting times.
It is. So people, don't forget, your heart is both the combination of the pipes, the blood vessels that supply the heart, but it's also electrical. And you have to make sure and look at those two things. And that's why when we talk about these different screening tools, being EKGs, looking at more of the electrical signal versus ultrasounds, looking more at the pipes that supply blood to the heart. That's why it's important to get a thorough evaluation And especially if your kid is going to be playing sports.
And we do a lot of evaluations. So we do stress tests and echocardiograms to screen these kids before they play sports. So that's always an option for individuals. You can ask your doctor for an EKG, an ultrasound, and the history physical they should have done already.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, share with the audience information if they do want to get in touch with you, your organization, to do that.
Yeah, so we're Houston Cardiology Consultants, HCC Heart, hccheart.com, and happy to answer any questions. You don't need to come and see me as a patient. I'm just happy to, give more informative packages around sudden cardiac arrest. There's some stuff on our website as well that's free to the public. We just want to make sure we get the word out and make sure that we screen kids and hopefully save some more lives.
That's what it's about, man, saving lives.
That's right.
Thank you, Asif, so much for joining us for this edition of Your Health, Your Wealth. Please share this episode with your friends. Think about the things that we've talked about, and let's really ramp up the efforts to get kids screened, especially those athletes. And because this is something that, with the right screen, of taking a look at things beforehand, that we can save some lives. So, man, thank you again for taking time out of your busy schedule today and joining us.
Really appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
All right, and tune in for future episodes of Your Health, Your Wealth. See you next time.